Hey guys, welcome. Thank you for tuning in and for finding me here on YouTube. Please go ahead and find me also on Instagram. My handle is Goliath_artist. So I do accept DMs. And if you want to reach out to me, you can also send in some emails. My email address is Goliath_occultist@hotmail.com. So if you have been tuning into my channel lately, I have been going through all of the planets that affect our solar system and affect us in the astrological world. The last one that I did was Pluto. We went down into the underworld and had a look around, and I explained to you what Pluto means in astrology. We've also done Neptune. We went to the bottom of the sea. I spoke about Neptune and Pisces and all of that. I've also got some other ones here we've done. We've looked at the midheaven. I've explained to you what the midheaven is. I've looked at the moon, all of the lunar aspects in astrology with the moon. We talked about the sun. We did Mars. I've also done Jupiter. A lot of expansion happening there. So have a scroll through my catalog, I guess you could kind of call scroll through my videos. You'll see Lilith, the black moon, Chiron. What is Chiron? Lots of different things. My favorite planet, of course, is Venus, but we have different planets for different things. They all correlate to different aspects of the divine and who we are. So go and have a look. If you're new to my channel, please smash the subscribe button and put a comment below. Let me know where your Mercury is sitting. So today, yes, I am doing Mercury. So I might be coming back to do some more, but I've got a few ideas for another series. I've had a few requests. So I don't know, after this series, I can't believe that I'm finishing this. Like, I'm getting closer to the end. It's going so quick. It's like, where has time gone this year? I did explain in another video recently, about 7 days ago, about time. And time is like going really, really quick. So that being said, let's get on to talking about the astrological meaning of Mercury. You know, what is Mercury? What does it mean? I think for this one, I'm probably going to go through all of the 12 signs and give you a really good rundown on how it works, you know, how this is affecting your chart. Please bear in mind that everything in someone's chart affects everything else in their chart. So it is very complex. All right, so it's not just sun sign stuff that we're looking at. We need to look at the degrees. We need to look at the angles, the aspects, where things are exalted, squares, trines. I will be getting on with my channel here explaining what all of these things mean. So if you're new to astrology and you want someone to explain it to you in a very strong, quick way, then come on in. But yeah, I mean, when we think of Mercury in what it is, I often think of like Hermes, you know. If anyone knows anything about astrology, you know that Mercury is the ruling planet of Gemini and Virgo, and it is exalted in Virgo, but it is disabilitated in Pisces. So remember, when we have a powerful exoneration or an exoneration of energy in a sign, that's where it's most peaking. That's where it's mostly pushed out in its form. When we have something that's in its opposite, it's being debilitated, or it's being dissolved in its opposite. Okay, so as you would probably think, Pisces is not really a Mercury sign. Gemini is a mercurial energy. Virgo is a mercurial energy. Okay, so these are the thinkers. These are the scientists. This planet is about communication. So if you know anything about astrology, then you'll know that yes, this is all about communication. And so we all have different ways of communicating. You know, how we express ourselves is really, really important. It gives access to ourselves, to other people, how we express ourselves through language, through, is it multi, I think I'm is it off the top of my head? Is it multidextrous? Things to do with like, hand movement, nervous system, all of that type of thing. That's all connected to Mercury. So if you're a Gemini out there and you're a little bit, neurotic, and you've got your nervous system is like fucking going off its head, and you're like smashing back the coffees, and you've got all these ideas, and it's all like, I have talked about, I think I was talking about Geminis in Venus, how it's like, oh my God, like being a Gemini and being inside a Gemini brain would be kind of like being inside a pinball machine. It's an explosion of like all these ideas, and it's all moving really quick, and it's very bouncy, and it's so intense, right? And so, yeah, so where your Gemini sits in your chart and the degree that it's in is going to show us your communication, your projection, how you project your thinking, what you're thinking about, the types of thought patterns that you have that go on inside your head. All of this is about where you're expressing yourself in your chart through communication. So, it's said that if you don't have a way to communicate, and there are some signs which do have a lot of problems around the way that they speak. If you've got your Mercury in Pisces, that could be a problem, because fish don't have vocal cords. It's hard to explain a lot of and rationalize things in a way that others can understand. If you've got your Mercury in Taurus, maybe that's going to be a bit more of a slower thinking person. Not that you're dumb, but it's like when you're communicating, you like to listen to other people speak and, really think about, what it is that you want to say. You're not just going to say something for the sake of it kind of thing. So where your Mercury sits is how you, and what sign it's in, and of course what house it's in, and et cetera, et cetera. It's all about how you articulate thought into something that gives it a voice. All right. So when we think of like Hermes, Hermes being the god of communication, he was also the god of like commerce. We're thinking in terms of the expression of a skill set that can move very quick and can communicate things very, very quickly. So in Greek mythology, Hermes was the god. I think, he was the son, a son of Zeus, and he was very agile, and he had these golden sandals with the little wings on them. Okay, so he was also a messenger that was able to bring messages from the gods to each other, also bring messages from the gods to the human world. And he also was able to help transition people into the spiritual world. So this is like in terms of talking about Mercury as the god himself. This is all important to understand when we look at Mercury in the way that it dictates our decision making and how we come to conclusions. All right. So think of it that way. Look, there's so many darker aspects. Like I talk about light aspects, like obviously communication is very, very important. Say for example, when I'm looking at birth charts and I'm looking at someone's synastry, you might have your Mercury in Aquarius and your partner might have their Mercury in Capricorn. So, that's not really a harmonic way of like one, when we have oppositions in Mercury, we have relationship problems in terms of communication. So if someone has a very indirect way of communicating, that can be a problem. If someone has a very overly expressive way of communication and they can't feel received and the other person can't understand them, that can be a problem. So we have a lot of problems around decision making when it comes to Mercury in our chart in terms of where our Mercury sits and how others see our Mercury. Okay, so there are very compatible Mercuries, and there are, like anything else, there's other aspects of synastry charts or in our chart that may not really work well. That's why it's probably best to get a chart reading done. But all relationships have strengths and weaknesses. Fundamentally, when I look at why I'm interested in astrology, it's because I'm looking at the blueprint of you. I'm looking at the matrix of you. It's in a lot of ways like this is kind of like a bit of a simulation. The human experience is kind of a bit of a simulation. And I think that freaks people out. But I've been doing astrology for 15 years. It's only in the last couple of years I've started like actually charging people for in-depth birth readings. And a lot of the time looking at charts in and out and, just hear it from me right now. Sometimes when I'm looking at charts, it is a little bit like Build a Bear. If you know that, you know what I'm talking about. It's like we're all little bits of fractals of each other, like Build a Bear, choose the eyes, choose the mouth, choose the nose. That's what formulates a human. So when I understand someone's chart astrologically, it's like giving me a key to understanding everything about them. It's their strengths and their weaknesses. It's the things that they're susceptible to. It's their influences, etc. So when we're looking at Mercury in someone's chart, this is how they learn. This is how they process data. All right. This Mercury represents the attributes of how someone thinks. Okay, so of course we'd have to look at the rising, which is the outer world, the ego, the moon, the internal world, the receptive nature. The sun is the outer world. Yeah, the rising is the lens that they see the world through. So all of these things have to be all looked at in terms of aspects. Sometimes we have very gentle aspects where they're very low. Sometimes we have very harsh aspects where the degree in someone's chart is very high. That's called an anaretic degree. We have to look at, what sign it's in? Is it a fixed sign like Scorpio or Capricorn or Taurus? All right, so all of this stuff, it all affects someone. And of course, it's going to affect their compatibility. So I hope that this is all making sense. The color of Mercury is green. That's associated with this color, sometimes white, or associated with this planet, and it's also usually seen in an emerald. And the day of Mercury is actually a Wednesday, so you'll see that as well. But yeah, all right. So what I might do to give you an example is I want you to pay attention to where your Mercury sits in your chart. All right. So we know Pluto was like where we transform, but Mercury is where it's where we learn, and we all have different learning styles. We all have different communication styles. The communication style of a person will usually be projected through their rising sign. Okay. I've also mentioned that with a rising sign, as humans age in this world, they generally look more like their rising sign than their sun sign as they age. That's why when I meet someone for the first time, and I do this with friends, or if I go out to a movie theater or a shop, or, go to a club, I'm very hermetized these days. So I don't really go out much. But what I used to do all the time was I would walk around and tell people their star sign just by looking at them. And I've got friends that can attest to this. It was a real sport of sorts. And over a period of time, it really freaked a lot of people out. So I'd walk into a shop, I'd walk into, whatever it is, and I'd look at the girl, the cashier, the retail staff member, and say, "You're a Sagittarius? Am I right?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am." I'm like, "How did you know that?" And I'm like, because I can tell energy has memory, but also the way energy vibrates, because I'm that way inclined, I can sense the types and patterns of energy in a person, and it's usually the rising sign is what I get first. If I don't get their sun sign first, it's because I was just looking mostly at their rising. Okay, so some people can do this, some people can do this because it's just also like my way of connecting is because guess where my Mercury is sitting? Can you have a guess? Where do you think my Mercury is sitting? My Mercury is also in Sagittarius. Okay, so I have my Mercury in Sag. So I'm a storyteller. I'm a very, like, the wisdom, I'm like the old man sitting at the fire with a stick, like poking the coals, telling you about the world. That's the aspect of my mercurial energy. So you can probably hear it now when I'm talking. I'm giving you a story. And Sagittarians like to give stories. They like to share wisdom and knowledge. All right. So you can hear it maybe in my voice. Some people pick up on that a little bit. So when we look at a Mercury in someone's chart, if they have a very high Mercury, like a lot of third house stuff going on in their rising sign, this will make the person look always physiologically, how they look, younger than what they are. So with a Gemini, it's usually what I call the 10-year thing, 10-year rule. Same with some of these Capricorns. If the Capricorn hasn't worked too hard and wrecked themselves too early, then you'll see that their Mercury is what is making them look young. All right, so they'll always look 10 years younger than what they are unless they're a Capricorn, and Capricorns age backwards. All right, so you will see a lot of the mercurial looking people, like Gemini, Mercury, or more Gemini rising people. They look very elven. They look a lot like the Fae, that type of thing. Often Gemini people are quite small in their physical stature, kind of like Kylie Minogue. They're very acrobatic. They're very, like a little ninja. They're very much like Hermes. He was not like a big god. Like, they're little. They're quick. They can move quick. They're quick on their feet. Mercury deals in agility. So it also deals in, speed, the ability to jump from one thing quickly into another. So you will see people with a lot of heavy Mercury in their chart or a lot of third house stuff. They can travel a lot, much like its exhilarated partner in Sagittarius with that Jupiter energy. But it's someone that can cover a lot of topics very quick. So it's usually multilingual. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Multilingual, so lingual. I hope I pronounced it correctly. But yeah, it's someone that can actually study languages, study cultures, someone that can really understand, and not just understand something, really understand something. Really understand something. All right, that's the power of Mercury. So, and this is important because I want you to understand that when it comes to loving something, and I've learnt this and I'm just sharing it now, in order to actually love something and have integration with something where you bring it in closer to you, so it becomes a part of you, you have to actually be able to understand what it is. You have to be able to comprehend what this person is all about. So if you can't understand something, for the level of depth of love that I want in my life from others, because I want to be loved and I want to give love, I have to be able to understand that of what I'm loving. And they have to be able to do that for me. All right. So if you're a deep thinker with a really deep heart, having someone with a very low emotional IQ or even an intellectual IQ, that's really not going to work in a relationship. I always like to give the jellyfish analogy. where it's like a little girl loves the jellyfish, and it's so pretty. It's in the tank, and it's floating around in this beautiful aquarium tank kind of thing. In order for her to love that, she needs to understand that taking that jellyfish out of the water and hugging it would not be in the best interest of the jellyfish. All right, do you understand? So when you love something and you understand what it is, you have to understand what is best for that thing. Sometimes in this case, it would understand that the jellyfish is a creature of the sea or of water, and it needs to be left in the tank. So how we choose to love something may not be, or how we are able to love something isn't going to be the best way for that person or that thing. So that's why understanding something and understanding something in any level of connection, I don't care what it is, whether it's a friend or whether it's a family member, whether it is your lover, you must be able to understand them. You must be able to see them, hear them, interpret their idiosyncrasies, the way that they express themselves, so that you can create a space that makes them feel taken in and seen. All right, so this is the price that a lot of mystics or a lot of very smart people, you'll often find they'll be the most isolated people, because the regular world in its basic comprehension isn't going to be capable of giving something that it doesn't have. All right, so I hope that made sense. All right, so love and understanding something go hand in hand. So when we look at Mercury in terms of how we connect with other people, it's really awesome when we start looking at it from that way. How does this person think? What's in their best interests? All of that type of stuff. All right. Now, there is an aspect of Mercury which a lot of people get burned by. They get burned by a lot of Gemini people. Sometimes you can get burned a little bit by Virgo. Virgo isn't quite as bad, but the Geminis out there, I think Gemini in itself, Gemini, Cancer, potentially Aries and Scorpio can get a really, really bad rap. People can get burned by them in a lot. We can all burn each other, but when it comes to Gemini, you'll often hear this kind of two-faced thing, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the duality, the twin. And I think that aspect of Mercury in someone is a trickster. Hermes was a trickster. He stole from Apollo. It's someone that can flip the switch really quick. So you think that you're going in one direction with someone and everything's really cool, and then all of a sudden, bang, out of nowhere, it's like they're showing a completely different side to their character that you never thought was there. So there's a lot with Mercury. There is a lot of instability with these types of mercurial people. All right. So, and that hands down is one of the biggest problems that people come up against when we're looking at Mercury placements and where it's positioned in someone's chart, is someone that, because it's air. Hermes is air. It's flying up in the air. Air has no form other than what it takes it on, what it's contained in. All right. So yes, Geminis have, and mercurial people, high mercurial third house placements in charts have a lot of higher learning and education. This is really, really amazing, particularly if it's Virgo Mercury, because it's someone that is able to teach, someone that can really listen to you. And you see, Virgo is more of the logical side of Mercury, and Gemini is more of this sporadic, neurotic, stop start, type of thing. There's no linear form to Mercury when it's sitting in Gemini. All right, so a lot of people find that very unsafe. And to a certain point, I totally agree with it. If it is a person that is Gemini based, this is very difficult to be with. So if you're wanting someone that, the person you wake up with in the morning may not necessarily be the person that you went to bed with last night, then go for it. But if you want someone that can, is very quick at communicating and wants to rush you, when you're communicating with them so they can get to their point, and, very up and down and all over the place, then, it's going to be an amazing life. It's going to be pretty witty, but it's not really stable, in a lot of ways. So Mercury rules the lungs and the nervous system. All right, it rules in the human body your balance. It rules your reaction time to things. It rules problem solving and, of course, obviously communication, whether that's through teaching or even being entertaining. But yeah, the darker aspect of Mercury is someone who can be quite cunning, someone who can be quite quick-footed, someone who likes to blur lines, someone's who likes to push boundaries. In a lot of relationships, Gemini people or Mercurial people can be very flirty. I've met a lot of a lot of Gemini men that are partnered that will try and court me and date me even when they're in a relationship with someone. So this type of thing is a darker aspect to understanding the realm of Mercury. All right. So what I think I'll do, I'm going to go through some explanations. I'll just give you like a summary, maybe a little bit of like Mercury through the signs, so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. All right. So maybe we'll start with Aries, the baby. In astrology, Aries is the baby. Leo is the teenager. It's all about me, me, me. And of course, Sagittarius is, it's me. It's the old man with the beard. It's like, Marilyn. Actually, I do really love that movie, the Hallmark movie from 1998 with Miranda Richardson. It's got Merlin. It's Merlin. She played Queen Mab. I love that. Sorry, I was going to say animated movie. I love that movie. All right, so I'm going to give you some examples here. Because we have to look at, obviously where everything's sitting. All right. So when I think of like Aries Mercury, that is someone that could be a bit competitive. That's someone that wants to get to the point really quick. They want to rush. They're a little bit combative in their communication. It can be very blunt. They have a tendency sometimes to rush people a little bit at times. So remember, in astrology, in this kind of thing, we move through all the signs as we go through life, and we learn a lot from the sign that came before us and the sign that came after us. Okay? I myself, I'm right on the cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius, so my sun sign is sitting at like 1.4 degree or something, very, very low in a sun Sagittarius. So I do have a lot of that deeper scorpionic energy in my sun, all right? So some people will mistake me when they look at me for a scorpion, but I'm not. I'm a Sag. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. We have to look at the degrees, all right? But if your degree is very low in an aspect of your chart, then it is highly likely that it will take on the form of the sign that came before it moved into that sign. Okay, so Aries communication style is combative and direct. All right, when I think like what we'll go Taurus. Okay, so Taurus's communication style is a bit more refined. It's a bit slower. It's like someone that doesn't really want to speak very quickly, speaking only when necessary, a bit more reserved. Mercury people usually have a very good speaking voice. It can be, when Mercury people in Taurus can be good for like radio stations and stuff. But yeah, Aries is very fiery, passionate, and blunt and abrasive, and Taurus is more, it pulls its energy more in. All right. So a bit more chill, a bit more of a chill type of listener. Remember, when it comes to communication, we're not just looking at communication in relation to Mercury isn't just about you talking. It's also about listening to body language, listening to cues, listening to eye contact, that type of thing. That's all part of Mercury, how we digest and process, another person. All right. So yeah, if your communication's not right with someone, it's going to be a problem. Okay, Pisces communication style is a very tricky one. As we know, that's the place where Mercury is most disabilitated. So this is more like way out of the box. And I think Einstein was, being a Pisces and being being that mercurial energy of that level of intelligence is someone that, I think, it's like, for me, when I think of Einstein, I think of someone that's like an Aquarius, I love you, but don't touch me, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's completely outside of the box. So it's like in a different realm. Pisces rules the 12th house, and when it comes to communication, they intuitively know things and feel things. So it's very hard sometimes for them to communicate everything that's going on inside of them, because they're like all of the world, all of these realms and universes are inside of them. All right. Leo in Mercury can be a little bit self-aggrandizing. It's the me. So it's like, pay attention to me. I'm talking. It's authoritative. It can be very creative. We know, Mercury sitting in the 5th house, or any level of 5th house stuff happening with Leo, can be quite expressive. They want to be seen. So, it all depends, obviously, where it's sitting. Where it's sitting. If it's a Sagittarius, it's more about the bigger picture, talking about, the world, the universe, and they kind of can be a little bit blunt as well. Like, I know I can be quite blunt, where it's like, that's how it is, deal with it, that type of thing. But very big philosophical ideas happen. Sometimes Sagittarius and Aries and Leo can be prone to a little bit of information exaggeration sometimes. Sometimes they can all come off a little bit too quick, that way. I would say, let's have a look. Capricorn mercurial energy. A Capricorn Mercury is someone that is very much dealing with like work and time management, and is also looking at the bigger picture, but is very logical and grounded in how they convey their thoughts. It can be very like sarcastic at times. You'll often notice a Mercury in Capricorn person will have this way of bringing something out that is very dry, and it's very sometimes deliberate. And I think it's like Capricorn people have a very dark sense of humor. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Leos make very good public speakers. Libras make good public speakers. Libra is Venus, but they're more like, the way that they communicate, they don't want to step on people's feet. Libra, Mercury people want to be seen as the golden boy. They want to be, the Libra in Mercury would probably be a bit like Gemini in Mercury, where they will have many discussions with many different people on the same topic to work out and sort out things to get the best decision, to get the best outcome. All right. So Mercury in Libra is a bit more patient and passive, and it's a good listener. Mercury Libra people are good listeners, very articulate, and yeah, they're good when we listen to them. Yeah. So same with Taurus Mercury, they also will be, they'll let you speak, let you finish. Sometimes Aries people want to rush the conversation. Gemini, Mercury people will do that as well, and it can be quite frustrating. And Yeah, they're not patient. What else have I done? There's a few. I'll do a few more. Cancer in Mercury can be very tricky. It's very trepidous. So they're not going to give up everything. Same with Scorpios. They want to know all about you in communication. So they're very prying into learning about you, but share very, very little about who they are. They're very slow to show you who they are and share knowledge with you on certain things. Scorpio Mercury is someone that doesn't really want to have, small talk. A Mercury in Scorpio is someone that wants to get to like religion and politics and, the heavy duty stuff that goes on in life. They want to converse about those types of topics. So yeah, and then of course, and also as well with Cancers mirror the heart, Gemini mirror the mind. So a lot of mercurial energy is reflective as well in its own way. Not as much as the moon is, because the moon has no light of its own. It only bounces light off things around it, but they will mirror things around them. The darker aspect of a very heavy mercurial person that doesn't have a lot of heart aspects in their chart is like heart, like very over logical, analytical thinking is sometimes they'll have no sense of self and they will mirror things like watching a movie and wanting to be the person in the movie. A lot of borderline personality stuff happens with a lot of like heavy mercurial energy in their chart. But I mean, Mercury is inquisitive and it wants to know about everything. Like a Gemini Mercury person is someone that sometimes knows a lot about different things. They've got their finger in lots of different pies. They're not just limited to one thing that they're very knowledgeable about. And they can change their opinion on things pretty quick too. That's the thing about mercurial energy is that it's not fixed. So if a new fact is presented that overrides the truth that they thought that they knew about something, they can shift their decision on something very quick. So it's very adaptable in that way. Taurus energy in Mercury isn't like that. Once they've locked in, they've locked the fuck in. That's how they feel about it. That's how it is. And they don't like to veer off that script very much. Yep. Okay, so I hope I've made all of this really, really clear. What else have I done? Yeah, Virgo, Mercury is very like communication style is like a teacher. They like very analytical, logical thinking. They want to listen to the facts. They want to make sure that what they're learning about is correct. They're quite polite and have like a pleasantry about them when it comes to getting their point across. But yeah, I hope all of this has made sense. But yes, I just wanted to give you a very strong projection about what is Mercury about. It is all about where your communication sits. It's all about how you express yourself through knowledge and your thought process and how you understand things. So when you meet someone, think about where their Mercury is sitting. Some people can pick up where my Mercury is because I'm into like astrology and magic and philosophical thinking and the bigger picture and, where's the world headed and all of these types of really big things. That's a lot because I have a lot of Jupiter in my chart. I've got a stellium in Sagittarius. So I'm all about the bigger nuances of things. I'm not myopic. I'm not very, Virgo can be very myopic, and Sagittarius energy in relation to this topic is someone that is like, let people be who they are and that's how they are. A Virgo in Mercury can be a very highly intellectual person that can be very intense and sometimes over intellectualize emotions. And that can be very off-putting because it feels restrictive and it feels controlling at times. But yeah. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. It's been awesome talking about Mercury. Yeah, if you'd like to book me for an astrological chart reading, please go to my channel and do so, or go to my website, just click on the link, send in your details, and I will conduct a reading and a recording, and I'll send you the link and I will explain your chart to you. Just let me know any areas that you'd like me to focus on, any attributes or any, maybe you want me to look at where your Mercury is sitting. How can you communicate better? We all learn from each other. We all learn from opposites. So polarity is a very real thing in the world and in our chart. So with sometimes I have to slow down my thinking. Sometimes I have to be more patient with listening to other people talk and be more considerate about how I not how I communicate things. So we all, and then other people that are the opposite to me, they have to get out of their shell more. They've got to be more like, okay, let's speak, work on your speech, work on conveying your knowledge into a way that is understandable for that person. So yeah, communication. Yes. All right. Lots and lots of love. This was Mercury in astrology. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Bye. Bye.